Hey guys, what's up? All right. It's Double Deuce back. Today, we're going to do a little segment on the Chevrolet Blazer. We're going to go through the military version, the Parnelli Jones version, and just one of my favorite monster trucks I ever built. So, you guys stay tuned, and here we go. Okay, we're going to start with the Blazer versions. I guess one of my most favorite Chevy trucks in my whole growing up period was the Chevrolet Blazer. I don't know why. I've had Broncos, I've had, Dodge Rams, I've had all this stuff through my days, but the Chevrolet Blazer always turned out to be the top dog. And if you notice here, this is the version that I put my last video up with. There's no tracks on it, and I'll tell you why. Because in the back, you'll see there's a little, you have to have a different spindle for the RC four-wheel drive, tracks. And what it does, it keeps it from flipping around when you're, it locks it in place. And these spindles on the front of these ARB axles, most of the axles will fit these things. However, they don't fit in the front, and they jam and they lock it up. Because today I went to take it out and run it to give you guys a run video, and it was typical Dennis luck. I went outside and fired it up, and I started to take off, and it just kept trying to flip over, and I didn't know why, because this was jamming into the spindle itself, so it wasn't working. But so I put some military tires on it, and I got these online, and they are actually from, hold on, HG ASS-01. They're actually the military tires. I bought these things for the simple reason of they had an adapter on the back that would actually fit the old original Bruiser wheels with that weird three screw adapter. You could put the original Bruiser wheels with the adapter from these wheels on anything with a 12mm hex. So I did a video on that a long time ago, and so anyways, by the time I came in and changed the wheels, it started monsoon raining outside, because welcome to New England, and went from there. So from there we got, put this over here, we got the Parnelli Jones. Okay, this was an iconic truck back in 1973. That's why when I bought the Toyin X-Power Sand Cruiser, was because it was the Parnelli Jones version of the Tamiya electric build they did back in the day. But this has the L200 in it. It's not water cooled, it's only air cooled. 5-speed, 3-speed with neutral and reverse, so that's 5-speed. And I've done some videos on this too. And this one here is a Tamiya Bruiser that I had built a long time ago, and I just kept upgrading through the years. And it's actually a Clod Buster setup on a Bruiser frame with an RC four-wheel drive body on it. So let's get to the military truck first. All right. Now I have a couple of these military trucks because I'm an Army brat. I grew up military all my life, and which is it's a good lifestyle. You know what I mean? The hardest thing I had to do back when my father was getting out of the military was giving up my ID card, because when you're a military brat, you get an ID card also, and after that ends, you get to deal with all the problems that they dealt with, PTSD and all that stuff, and it's not cool. But so anyways, these were not a Chevrolet Blazer. Okay, this is the insurance card from where I got it from. I bought it from a local police department, and if you see, it's a 1985 Chevrolet AM General D10M1009. That's what these are. Now, funny, to go beyond that one more step, on the title that we got from the federal government when I bought these trucks, the title says that it's a K105-16 M1009. So they all made it sound like a weapon, you know what I mean? So it was a K105-16, so like an M16, M14 they had back in the day. And so I have a love for these Blazers. They rot away so fast, it ain't funny. And but they've always been like easy to park, easy to drive, the best plow truck in the world. I really wish Chevrolet would come back out with a solid axle, you know, Blazer with some, maybe that doesn't rot away so fast. There's two things about these trucks, and I know every person in the military out there has their first complaint. They will go anywhere except wet grass because of these tires right here. When you put this truck with a 6.2 diesel, tons of torque, no RPM, slow as hell, but you put this on a grassy hill, this is useless. It's just you know, it was a demolition derby. You go up, slide down into each other and everything else. And two, there was absolutely no insulation in these trucks whatsoever. They actually had just bare steel painted floors in them. So when you went down a rocky gravel road, it was just, the noise was crazy in your head of the gravel hitting underneath of the undercarriage of the car, you know, the truck. And the cool thing was they were a 12 and a 24 volt system on these things. Inside they had a voltage reducer that set on the firewall that would cut all your lights, wipers, and there wasn't too many options on the truck. It would cut it down to 12 volts. Everything else was 24 volts. So in the front of these trucks, on my original Blazer, it had a animal guard on the front of them, they called them. It was like a brush guard. And in the front over here, they had an adapter where you could plug in jumper cables to jump the big military rigs that were 24 volts also. So these are more of a troop carrier, kind of a reconnaissance vehicle, you know, radio vehicles. A lot of these, there's like, even mine has like antenna holes in it where it was drilled for antennas and all that stuff. They could slip in and out of places quietly with the 6.2, not like Kelly's Heroes, the Detroit diesels, you know. They use them for a lot of maneuvers. They didn't really use them for a lot in war, I'll put it that way. But they did have a Dodge truck version of this, and they had a Ford truck version of this. And being my father was in the you know, the aeronautical end of the military, you know, he was into the, you know, helicopters and all that stuff. And you know, they did, he started off as a helicopter mechanic, and you know, he did 2 tours in Nam. So to see something that was, you know, after the Vietnam era that was this cool was like, wow. Because back then we had like half cut off tugs, they called them. They were shortened versions, shortened frames of all the trucks to move the aircraft around, you know, and it was, you know, it was a whole different animal back then. But so my love for military trucks and the military is, you know, it's like up to #1 on my list there, you know. So you got to pay tribute to all the vets out there and the families, especially the families, because the families, they paid a price, you know what I mean, for, you know, because they were just sitting home waiting. That's the worst thing in the world, is waiting. But long story short, that's why I love the military trucks. If I get some adapters for the front where I can kind of like bring the wheelbase out, because all the K5 Blazers, if anybody ever notices, the front wheelbase is wider than the rear. That way it doesn't get stuck in its own tracks. It was always pulling itself out, which was an ingenious idea. So if I'd like to widen the front of these a little bit more, and then I'll get a video up of running. I'm sorry guys, I know I've been promising that video. But now let's go to the Parnelli Jones version. The Parnelli Jones version was a cool version. this is like, I don't know, mid-70s. I mean, this body style actually came out in 1973. I remember it. I was living in Texas, down in Fort Hood, Texas, when these things came out. And at the time, I was into horsepower and engine size, cubic inch, and all that. And when the Parnelli Jones come out later, you know, I don't remember exactly what they were running in these things, but you know, they took the Baja circuit pretty wildly. I don't think their versions were four-wheel drive. You know, if they were, you know, correct me on that. But I haven't done a whole lot of like to catch up research because I used to know all about them back then. So when Toyota come out with this, I had to buy it. To me, passing on something to you, 15, 20 years from now, you're going to say, what a collector's item this thing is. You know, I should have bought one back then. You know, everybody says, oh, they're too high at, you know, $1,800. But you get the best quality machining I've ever seen in an RC car. And you get that iconic Parnelli Jones body. That was the copy of the Tamiya body. And Tamiya didn't do gas engines back then, you know. So this has got forward, reverse, and 3 speeds forward. It's got a lockable front differential. And, you know, it's just an iconic truck that's waiting in the shadows for something to roll around in the future. Now, we're going to get back to this Blazer. I love monster trucks. I had Clod busters and all that stuff in my day. And when I built this truck, it was, seriously, this build probably, I started this build back in 1988. I think 89 I started this build because my youngest son was just born. So this is the original Bruiser that I had framed that I had bought back in the day. Next to my original Bruiser, when I found out you could get parts for them, so I bought all the pieces of the frame to build a monster truck, and I used the plastic Clodbuster stuff in the thing, and it you know, it handles like a real monster truck. It's got that bounce and that weird steer to it and everything. And when I had, you know, over the years, I found out that, you know, you could buy aluminum front and rear differential housings for them and everything else. My dream was to actually run some kind of a belt system from the front and rear gearboxes to like a nitro engine, which still may happen in my days here if I, you know, stay well enough. You know, don't be surprised if you don't see that, because I just found a box of everything that I had way back in the old days. It was funny, my when I was married at the time, my ex-wife says, "Oh, the vacuum cleaner died today," you know, and so I tore the vacuum cleaner apart, and then I realized that they had these really cool belts and colored plastic, you know, pulleys and everything. So when I fixed her vacuum cleaner, I had actually ordered several more for myself, because I always do that, you know, just to make a belt conversion with a single nitro engine in this thing. So the cool thing about these old Blazers is, I worked at a Chevrolet dealership back in 1977, 78, and now I just seen this on YouTube just recently, and I'm trying to remember the name of the guy's channel, but if he was a kid growing up like me. My father worked for GM at the time, and I worked for GM at the time because I was just a young buck, and I worked at a Chevrolet dealership in Northeast Pennsylvania. It was called Reno Chevrolet. And we had the weirdest cars come in there. They were all like, you know, one-off prototype things just to come in to kind of like whet everybody's appetite for, you know, the new cars and everything else. And one thing that I had seen that this guy had posted, and I will put the link down below so you can check out his videos. He has old 8mm tapes back from the day that were converted to, you know, digital now, where he could put on his YouTube channel. There was a version of the Chevrolet Blazer in 1977. They called it the K28. You know, because they're, you know, K5 Blazers, you know, and the K28 was a Z28 version of the Chevrolet Blazer. And now the one that I seen may have been the exact one that his father had as a you know, just something. The engineers used to take the cars home, and then they used to like spread them out, let them be seen. Then they would crush them. Okay, the version that I seen was a 427 four barrel with a manual transmission, and it had like 31-inch tall tires on it, and it had sway bars front and rear, and there was some other thing about that thing too that was dual exhaust. It had dual exhaust on it, and what it was a Z28 version of a four-wheel drive truck back in the day. And in 1978, there was a brown short bed Chevrolet pickup that came that had a LS6 454 in it. It was the coolest truck ever. It had that crazy orange and brown plaid interior, bucket seats, console, automatic on the column, tilt, cruise. Like, it had every option available except air conditioning. It did not have AC, and it was like, I didn't learn for years and years and years and years on that when I got into muscle cars, like, you could not put AC into a solid lifter camshaft. This truck had 410 ratio front and rear differentials in it. It was a four-wheel drive. It had the LS6 454 in it, and which was an outdated motor by then. It was totally outdated, and we all got to take it and drive it and do burnouts with it and have fun with it. And then it went back to GM and got crushed. But to this day, that truck sticks in my head, and I would always love to do an RC version of what that truck was. But it was just things that I grew up with. That when I seen that guy's video on K28 Blazer, it just kind of brought up a bunch of memories. And then I started looking through old photos that I had, because I used to take photos of everything that came in, like the Chevrolet Citation. Remember that disaster? Those were on a Anchor Motor Freight truck, because that's what Anchor Motor Freight was, the delivery, way for GM back in the day. We had 2 full trailers sitting in the back with Chevrolet Citations. I think they were a year and a half before they were even introduced. This was back in 1978, so they didn't come out until late 79, 80 or something like that. They were all under car covers. We couldn't show them to nobody. They had that crazy X11 version with the V6 in it with the 5-speed and front-wheel drive, and we're just stepping out of rear-wheel drive, like high performance, like real high performance cars, and to jump into that X11 front-wheel drive thing was like, that was so European to us, But all those cars actually had a bad trailing arm in the back. So GM sent like these crates of plates to put on. We had to drill and put them all in. We had templates and everything we had to put on them, and then we had to send them back to GM again. Well, come to find out, the templates they sent us and the plates were wrong. They were there was an updated version of that. So all those cars we converted, those two complete trailers of Citations went back and got scrapped, all because of that. And so over the years, you find out that they had all these different packages and stuff they were working on that the public didn't know about. And I guess I'm not a fan of the Chevy Love Truck, but I almost bought one just before I bought my 1980 Z28. And but I found out too that we had several on the lot. There were probably 6 or 8 of them that they just came one day and loaded them on a truck and took them back and crushed them because they had bad rust problems. They had bad steel, So, my love for the Blazer and a lot of GM products out there, like I've been involved in cars all my life. So, which now that I'm getting older, it gets a little hard to wrench on them, So I like to kind of mess with the RC stuff. But if I were to build, say, a version of a K28 Blazer, would anybody know about it? What would they look at? They would be like, oh, Dennis come up with his own version. When I didn't, I'm just paying tribute to, a version that was a prototype back in the day, So, like I say, I don't know. I mean, I still remember that brown 78 Chevrolet pickup with the LS6 in it. It was insanity. It was so fun, Like, it was not I mean, from red light to red light, you could dust anything out there. I remember we drove it home a couple of nights, and then the parts manager had it, and we were good friends, and he was a big partier. And I remember him pulling out. We lived on a hill. I remember him pulling out, putting it in 4 low, and just holding it to the floor, and then just dropping it in gear, and like those tires went up in smoke, and all 4 tires are burning up this big hill. You had to like picture it in your head, you know, because that was unheard of with a 4-wheel drive back then, you know. So, and that was probably the last, you know, of the high performance things that really came out, you know, until they had that dead period of the tune port engines and you know, cool things like that. But I mean, it all took a while for them to really come back with some serious horsepower. It was back in the 2000s there, you know, when they come out with the LS engine. And but like I say, kind of a history lesson today if you want, you know. I mean, you know, like, share, subscribe if you want, you know, tell your friends or whatever, hit the notification bell. You know, I'm going to continue on here while it's raining outside, and you know, kind of pay things forward to everybody out there who's, you know, going through things in their life. And so I hope everybody's cool, and I will catch you later. Adios.